Lawyer mocks orphan girl near Biker Meetup. What happened next surprised everyone. Engines idled like a steady heartbeat outside Harbor Cafe, chrome catching the late sun. 40 bikes lined the curb for the Saturday meetup when a sharp voice sliced across the small crowd. Soliciting is prohibited, said a man in a charcoal suit, shoes too polished for this sidewalk. He held his phone up at chin height like a badge. City code. You can't sell here. The girl he filmed, thin, 13 at most, stood beside a cardboard box of bead bracelets and a handwritten sign, for shoes at the shelter. Her braid was frayed at the tie. She hugged a zippered pouch to her chest as if it could talk back for her. I have permission to stand by the planners, she said, small but clear. The cafe manager. He flicked 2 fingers. Managers don't grant public easements. And this, he tapped her sign with the corner of his phone. His performative begging dressed up as crafts. Pack it. A few bikers turned. Helmet cams winked awake. Jax, our road captain, didn't move yet. He just raised a palm, witness first. The suit stepped closer. Name? She swallowed. Leah. Surname? Just Leah, she said, gripping the pouch tighter. He smiled without warmth. I'm a lawyer for the Merchants Association. It's my job to keep this block respectable. Then, with a neat flick of his wrist, he knocked the edge of her box. Beads spilled like rain, skittering across the concrete, bouncing under bench legs into boot treads. Leah's breath hitched. She dropped to her knees, fingers searching. Phones lifted higher. Someone from the cafe doorway said, "Hey," but the suit talked over it. "Consider this a lesson in boundaries." Jack stepped forward, just enough to be counted. "Sir," he said, voice even, "leave her box alone." The lawyer angled his phone to frame Jax's patch. "And you are?" "Neighbors," Jax said. "Recording." Leah's bracelet string had snapped. She gathered the beads in her cupped palm like seeds that might still take. "I'm not begging," she said, cheeks blotched. "I'm buying shoes. 10 pairs. We keep a list." "Admirable fiction," he said. He pivoted, narrating for his camera. "Parents use kids to soften enforcement. Classic tactic." Her jaw tightened. "I don't have parents." Something subtle shifted in the air, like a chord resolving. A waitress with a coffee pot bent to help, scooping beads into a saucer. A teen from the bus stop slid off his backpack and started picking too. The lawyer didn't lower the phone. "You're obstructing the walkway," he announced, squaring his shoulders at Leah's small island of color on the concrete. "I'll call code enforcement and have you removed." From inside, the cafe manager pushed through the door, apron crooked. "She can stay by the planners," he said, breathless. "We cleared it with the property owner on event days." "Property owners don't override municipal ordinance," the lawyer said. "Try reading more than menus." Leah stood, beads trembling in her hands. "Sir," she said, "please, I'm 4 bracelets away from the goal." 4. "Goals are met in appropriate venues," he replied. "Not sidewalks." Jax's voice dropped half an inch. "Put the phone down." The lawyer held his shot, savoring it. "Here's a better idea. Let's make this educational." He panned slowly. The girl, the sign, the spilled color, the row of bikes. "This," he intoned, "is why standards exist." A brassy clatter cut him off. The cafe bell rung hard. More riders stepped out, boots scuffing in a slow line, not rushing, not crowding, just arriving. 40 lenses steadied. The lawyer's reflection stared back at him from a dozen black visors. Leah's voice wavered, but she didn't back up. "If you want me gone," she said, "buy 4 bracelets and I'll go. That's the rule at the shelter. We don't leave lists unfinished." For the first time, something flickered behind the lawyer's eyes. It wasn't mercy. It was calculation running out of runway. "Or," he said softly, "I call the city and have the list removed for you." The street got very quiet, the kind that decides what it is next. Leah learned to count by shoes. Not the fancy kind on billboards, soles that didn't squeak with holes, laces that weren't 2 colors from 2 pairs, sizes that didn't bite. At the shelter on Harbor, the bulletin board kept a list in marker. Keenan 2, Ava 4, Luis 6. Leah traced the names at night after homework and chores, thumb pressing each number like a promise. When the city cut the grant that kept the Saturday craft table open, she started braiding thread in the bunk light. Beads saved from a thrift store jar, elastic bought with tip money from the cafe. She priced them at $3, 5 if someone had it, 1 if they didn't. "We don't leave lists unfinished," the director said. "We find a way." Her way led her to the biker meetups. They paid in cash and kindness and questions that sounded like respect. The cafe manager let her stand by the planners on event days. She learned which colors sold fastest, which jokes made strangers smile, which mornings the tide of people felt generous. She learned to hold her ground without raising her voice. She also learned the lawyer's name from flyers taped to shop windows: Victor Dane, counsel to harbor merchants. He'd filed letters about blight and order and got the craft table pushed indoors. When he walked this block, the air tightened. Now beads dotted the concrete like confetti nobody had asked for. Leah cradled what she'd salvaged. 4 bracelets to go. 4 names to cross off. She pictured Keenan's socks showing through rubber and swallowed the heat behind her eyes. Victor dialed. Code enforcement, he told the screen. His voice became the kind reserved for billable hours. Unauthorized vending. Crowding, obstruction, potential safety hazard with motorcycles present. He tilted the phone to catch the bikes, the leather, the patches, shaping a narrative like a suit shapes a shoulder. Jax didn't bite. We're on the property line, he said, calm as a level. The manager approved her spot. Managers don't, Victor began. A woman in scrubs, name badge Elena, stepped in with a to-go cup. She sold me 2 last week, she said. Receipts in my bag. Money went to the shelter because I delivered the shoes myself. She held up a photo on her phone. A boy in new blue sneakers grinning at the camera. Is this the blight? 2 more customers chimed in. An old man with a newspaper, a barista off shift, producing selfies, Venmo notes, the kind of documentation that isn't a form but counts just the same. The cafe manager lifted a laminated sheet from under the register. Property owner consent. Saturday events with a signature and date. Victor smirked. Adorable paperwork. Ineffective. Leah set the rescued beads in her box and straightened her sign. I can move 3 steps back, she offered, practical. Still visible, not in the way. You're already in the way, Victor said, voice soft enough to cut. This corridor is for commerce, not pity performances. She's commerce, Elena said. You're pity. Victor's eyes flashed. He raised the phone higher, angling for faces, patches, anything that could be cropped into menace later. You want a lesson in codes? He purred. Watch. He put the call on speaker. A flat tone, then a voice. Harbor code line. Yes, Victor said smoothly. This is attorney Victor Dane. I'm at Harbor and First. We have illegal vending obstructing pedestrian flow and a community event with property owner permission. The manager cut in loud enough for the mic documentation on site. Victor turned his back to them, blocking the phone with his palm like a stage magician. Send an officer, he insisted. Leah's breath trembled. She looked to Jax, then to the row of bikes, then to the planners where the marigolds didn't seem to mind her at all. I only need 4, she said, more to herself than anyone. 4 and I'm gone. Jax nodded once, small and certain. You're not gone, he said. You finish. Down the block, a white city Prius nosed into view, the kind with a light bar that blinked bureaucratic blue. Victor's smile returned like a bad habit. He ended the call and straightened his cuffs. Lesson begins, he said. 40 cameras rose as one. The white city Prius rolled to the curb, light bar pulsing a cautious blue. A woman in a municipal windbreaker stepped out with a clipboard and the expression of someone who has seen every version of urgent and learned to sort the real from the theatrical. Afternoon, she said. Officer Patel, code compliance. Who called? Victor tipped his chin like he'd been announced. Attorney Victor Dane, counsel to the Merchants Association. We have unlawful vending, obstruction of. Patel raised a palm, not rude, just sane. One at a time. She looked at Leah's cardboard, the planners, the taped line of property. You selling these? Yes, ma'am, Leah said. Only 4 left. For shoes at the shelter. Manager? Patel asked. The cafe manager slid over the laminated page. Property owner consent for Saturday events, he said. We've hosted crafters and fundraisers on meetups for years. She's at the planters like we agreed. Patel read, then glanced at the row of bikes. You all crowding her? Jax shook his head. We're just cameras. Victor's laugh at edges. Officer Patel, sidewalks are city property. Consent doesn't trump ordinance. This is a corridor of commerce, not community, said Elena, the nurse. Patel kept reading. Temporary vending is permitted within event boundaries with property consent when pedestrian flow is maintained. She looked up and swept a calm gaze across the walkway. I see flow. Victor adjusted his tie. I see liability and intimidation. He gestured at our patches like they were evidence. This is not a neutral audience. Jack spread his empty hands. Neutrality's overrated when a kid's box gets kicked. Patel crouched to Leah's level, voice dropping as if the crowd had melted away. You carrying a permit? Leah bit her lip. We couldn't afford the new fee after the grant got cut. She braced for no. Patel straightened. Okay, here's the deal. I can write you a citation that costs more than 4 bracelets, or I can use the discretion the ordinance gives me and call this an associated table under event consent if you slide back exactly 3 feet and keep a 36-inch path clear. She tapped a scuff on the concrete. To here. Leah measured with her sneaker toe, moved the box back, and smoothed the sign. The crowd exhaled a little. Victor stepped in, voice low. You're bending rules, officer. I'm applying them, Patel said. And I'll apply them to you if you keep filming a minor within 4 feet without her consent. Her eyes hit his lens and didn't blink. Back up, counselor. Cameras hummed like bees finding a new flower. Victor's smile thinned. Fine. He turned to Leah. Sell me 4 for the price of 1. Be efficient. Leah shook her head. 4 names for pairs. It's not math, it's people. A biker named Coop, forearms like bridge cables, eyes kind, scooped a bracelet and held up a 20. Names, he said. Keenan 2. Ava 4. Luis 6. Tasha 3. Leah said, almost a whisper. 2 down, said a woman from the bus stop, holding up a wrinkled 5 and a pile of coins. Make that Tasha. Then a soft rustle started, not applause, not a chant. Wallets. A line formed, untidy and determined, boots, scrubs, a barista, a mechanic with grease under his nails. Each buyer said a name as they paid, like reading a litany. Keenan. Ava. Luis. Tasha. Victor edged toward Patel again. This proves my point, unregulated commerce attracting loiterers. Patel didn't bite. She wrote something on her clipboard, tore the yellow copy, and handed it to Leah. Notice of temporary authorization. Valid until 6 p.m. within event boundary, path clear. Keep this with your box. Leah held it like a passport. Victor's jaw worked. He lifted his phone higher, panning for a frame that would make sense to his feed. The lens caught Leah's braid, the cracked sidewalk, a hand offering exact change with a smile that didn't ask for anything back. You're training a mob, he told Jax. We're training a town, Jax said. For bracelets became 3, then 2. Leah tied knots with quick, practiced fingers, held them up, let kids pick colors. Elena punched a number into her phone. Shelter director's on her way, she said. She's bringing the shoe list. Patel nodded. Good. We'll staple it to the file. Victor drew breath for another speech. And the cafe bell rang, a bright brass note. Everyone turned without meaning to. A woman in a dark blazer stood in the doorway, silver at her temples, eyes like a level. She took in the beads, the line, the lawyer with the phone, and the small girl holding a yellow authorization like a shield. Her gaze landed on Victor. Nephew, she said, voice cool as a bench in a marble hall. What exactly are you doing? Victor's phone sagged a few inches. Aunt Helena, he said, color creeping into his cheeks. I'm handling a code issue. Judge Rhett. Helena Dane stepped past him like he was a rumor. Officer Patel, she said with a nod. Good to see a competent citation for once. She glanced at the yellow paper in Leah's hand. Temporary authorization within event boundaries, sound application. Victor rallied. This is still unregulated vending. Merchants pay rent. And this cafe's property owner consent is on file, Helena said, the way you recite multiplication. Also, the sidewalk vending statute you keep waving excludes charitable activity associated with permitted events. She tipped her chin at Patel. Section 5.12.040C. Patel hid a smile. That's the one. Helena faced Leah, softening. May I see your sign? Leah handed it over. Helena read for shoes at the shelter and blinked away something that tried to shine in her eyes. How many left? 2, Leah said. Keenan and Luis. Helena looked at Victor. How many pairs of shoes do you think you've bought today? He shifted. That isn't the point. It's exactly the point, she said. Then to the room. This man was raised on scholarship funds and neighbors who kept lists. Somewhere between courthouse steps and cocktail hours, he misplaced the debt. A murmur moved through the line, recognition, not scandal. Elena, the nurse, lifted her cup. We all misplace things, she said. The fix is returning them. Helena tapped the edge of Leah's box. Here's how we return it. She pulled a small leather notebook from her blazer and wrote in a tidy hand. I'm seeding a shoe fund at the shelter. Monthly, auditable, posted on a bulletin board where anyone can count. Counselor Patel, will you accept a copy of the arrangement for the city's file? Patel nodded. Gladly. Helena slid 2 crisp bills across the cardboard. Keenan and Luis, she said. Consider them shod. Leah's mouth fell open, then closed into a smile that looked too big for her face and somehow fit. Thank you. Helena wasn't finished. She turned to the cafe manager. This establishment has permission for Saturday solidarity tables. I will draft a simple, clear memorandum with the property owner and merchants. We'll post it in the window. Clarity is cheaper than conflict. Victor tried one last angle. You're undermining my clients. You're mistaking your clients, Helena replied. They sell to people, not to codes. People like coffee more in rooms that honor kids trying to buy shoes. A biker named Coop raised a hand. Put us on the shoe fund as recurring donors. We ride the envelope over monthly. Heads nodded. Phones clicked to recurring. Victor's gaze bounced from Helena to Patel to the line curling around a box that had turned into a ledger. His shoulders slumped. He lowered the phone. Leah, he said, the word dry in his mouth. He stalled, reset. I was wrong. About the law and about you. He cleared his throat. I'll draft the MOU for the cafe and the shelter pro bono. Officer Patel, I'll send you the language for review. Patel raised her pen. I'll redline it if it postures. A ripple of quiet laughter warmed the concrete. Helena stepped close enough to Victor that the cameras couldn't read lips. You know better, she murmured. Live like it. 2 bracelets remained on Leah's palm, blue and green catching the light. Jack set a 20 on the box without a speech. Keenan, he said. Elena matched him. Luis. Leah tied the final knots, fingers sure again, and lifted the last bracelet high like a tiny flag. The line cheered, not loud, but long, like relief coming back into a limb. Officer Patel initialed the yellow slip and tucked a copy into her clipboard. For the file, she said. And for the days someone forgets this happened. Helena handed Leah the leather notebook. Keep the first page for Anna, for whoever needs the first pair this month, she corrected, catching herself with a soft smile. I'll bring the shelter director a proper agreement at 4. Victor looked at the box he'd knocked, at the beads he'd scattered, at the girl who now held a ledger with her name on page 1. He put his phone face down on the cafe ledge and took a slow breath that sounded like surrender turning into something better. Is there a way to fix what I broke? He asked. Leah considered. You can hold the box while I sweep, she said. It wobbles. He did. It didn't. The bell rang. Someone held the door. The crowd flowed, coffee, bracelets, receipts, a fund with a first line written in a retired judge's hand. A sidewalk that had been a battleground turned into a bench long enough for everyone to share. And the list on the shelter wall had 2 names crossed off in fresh ink. By late afternoon the box had steadied, and so had the street. The shoe fund ledger, page 1 in Judge Helena's tidy script, sat beside Leah's bracelets like a small, beating heart. Officer Patel clipped the yellow authorization to her clipboard and, with a felt tip, wrote documented across the top in block letters only bureaucrats can make look like mercy. The shelter van pulled up, side door thumping open. Kids peered out, eyes at window height, socks that didn't match, curiosity that did. Leah lifted the ledger and the last bracelet sample as if they were the same kind of proof. We did it, she told the driver. Keenan and Luis first. The driver's laugh broke into something wetter. I'll bring the shoes by dinner, she said. Make sure the laces are the good kind. Victor stood awkwardly near the planners, phone face down, sleeves rolled like a man who'd missed a turn and decided to walk. The MOU draft is done, he said to Helena, holding up his tablet. Plain English. No loopholes. She scanned, redlined 2 words, nodded. Better, she said. Now live it. Start now, Leah added, not cruel, just literal. She handed him a broom. The beads hide where your shoes don't bend. He swept. Jax and Coop moved benches an inch to widen the walkway, the way people who build instead of pose do. Elena taped a printed QR to the planner, shoe fund monthly audited, and the cafe manager stuck a matching copy inside the window, right between the pie of the day and the open mic flyer. A town learns new habits the way a hand learns a tool, slowly, then all at once. The surprising part wasn't the apology or the money. It happened when Helena, about to leave, said almost to herself, his mother died when he was 9. She didn't elaborate. She didn't excuse. She just left the fact on the step like a pair of worn shoes, enough to understand the blister, not to justify the kick. Victor's grip tightened on the broom, and for a moment the man with codes looked exactly like a boy with more rules than handholds. Then you know what a list can mean, Leah said softly. He nodded. I used to. I'd like to again. The shelter director arrived with a clipboard of her own and a box of brand new sneakers. Keenan's size, Luis's, and 3 more pairs paid by people who couldn't pass a ledger without writing on it. She stapled the receipt to Judge Helena's first page and wrote a next audit date in fat, hopeful ink. This, she said, patting the cardboard, is how a promise keeps appointments. We rode the ledger to the shelter, slow, chrome low and kind, while Victor and Helena walked behind Leah, carrying the wobbly box together. At the door, kids spilled out, fingers touching new laces like strings on a first guitar. Leah placed the ledger on a corkboard hook labeled Needs/Done, right between a chore chart and a scribbled drawing of a dog with 6 legs. She wrote in neat block letters, Keenan done. Luis done. Back at Harbor Cafe, the planners looked like they belonged more than the rules did. Patel tucked her pen away. For the record, she told her body cam, temporary authorization concluded without incident. Community solutions implemented. She clicked the mic off and turned to Leah. Come by City Hall Monday. I'll waive the permit fee for registered shelter fundraisers. Bring someone to sign with you. Leah pointed at Helena and Victor. I'll bring 2. Evening softened the chrome, and engines lifted into a low, contented hum. Leah held up one last bracelet, blue and green, and tied it around her own wrist. For the days I forget, she said. If you'd been there, when a lens hunted for a target and a town handed it a ledger instead, what would you have done? Tell us below. And if your block needs a list, start one tonight. One name, one need, one line that says done. We'll bring the broom.